Hello, welcome to Code Snippet. So in this video, we are going to look into one of the important topic of Java Spring called as dependency injection. There will be a lot of interview questions that will be asked on this topic. So let's see what it is. So sit back, relax and enjoy the show. So let me bring in the agenda of today's video. So Spring dependency injection, right? So first we will see what are prerequisites that are required for this video. After that, we will see why dependency injection, what is the need of it. Then we will see what is dependency injection and its types. So there are basically three types: field injection, setter injection and constructor injection, right? We will also discuss the advantages and disadvantages of these three, right? After that, we will discuss the common problem that we face in dependency injection. Two of the most common problems are circular dependency and unsatisfied dependency. So we will try to understand that by using an example. So that is the agenda of this video. So let's see what are prerequisites. So basically, in the last video, I have covered the life cycle of bean, and I have covered what all stages the life cycle goes through, and inject beans into constructed dependency is one of the step which a bean goes through, right? So if you haven't checked this video already, just go and check it out. This is the video basically where I have covered what exactly is the bean and how the life cycle of bean looks, right? So this video will be helpful to understand dependency injection as well. So that is a prerequisite basically. After that, let's see why dependency injection, right? Now let's jump into the code directly. So this is basically a Spring Boot application, right? And I have this class over here. So this is a simple class, right? So this is not a Spring component or anything. This is just a simple order class, Java class. I have one constructor over here. So let's say I have this user class over here, and this user class is making use of order, right? So here in this scenario, user is dependent on order, right? So we are creating an object of order over here, and then we are probably making use of it somewhere in the class. And here is just a constructor of this class, right? Now this is a normal way how we create an object of a class, right? So it shouldn't be a problem, it should be fine. But what is happening here is that user has a tight dependency on your order, right? So it is a tight coupling between both of them, right? So this tight coupling between these two might create some problem in future, right? So what problem it will create? Let's check it out. So let's say we have a order class, right? So let's say we want to convert this to an interface in future and have an implementation of these. So let's say we want to have online and offline order whose parent will be order, right? So what we will do here, we will actually go ahead and convert it to interface. Let's remove this, right? Now if I go inside user, then it will throw error because we cannot instantiate the object of your interface, right? So that is a problem. So let's say in future requirements, if you are converting your classes to interfaces and have such a tight coupling, then you cannot do that, right? You cannot create an object of that interface. Now let's say there is an online order class, and this online order class is implementing this order class, right? Now how you can fix this error? Now here you can fix the error by using the instance of online order class over here, which will solve the problem for you, right? Now this will solve the problem, but not entirely, okay? So here what we have seen, user and order classes have tight coupling, right? In future changes, this might create a problem as we have seen, right? And now to overcome that problem, we have provided a concrete implementation of this class, right? This is a class implementing order class, right? Basically, this is concrete implementation, right? So using this concrete implementation of online order class here breaks one solid principle, okay? Which solid principle it breaks? Dependency inversion, right? So dependency inversion is basically D inside your solid principle, which says that do not depend on a concrete implementation of class, rather go with your abstraction, right? So it says depend on abstraction rather than depending with your concrete implementation. So it is saying don't use this concrete implementation, rather just create an object of order. So what we need to do here, we need to remove this, just have an instance of your order class and take this order here inside your constructor and initialize your order here, saying this dot order equals to order, right? So this is how you can adhere to dependency inversion rule of your solid principle, right? Now this dependency inversion can be achieved by dependency injection, right? So in Spring, we can make these classes independent of these dependencies, right? We don't need to, create this object here only saying new keyword, right? We don't need to do that. What we can do is we can just declare this and we can inject the dependency dynamically, right? So this dynamic dependency injection will be taken care by your IOC container, right? So here this step inside your bean lifecycle comes into picture, right? Inject dependencies into constructed beans, right? Basically, we are avoiding any more tight coupling over here, right? So what we can do here is we can convert this class to Spring component, right? And just add a auto wired annotation over here. Now we are getting error because we need to convert this implementation to component as well. So I'll just add component here as well, right? So once I do that, this will not throw any error, right? So that is how you can inject this order dependency inside your user class, right? So that is how you are adhering to your dependency inversion solid principle. Okay, so that is how we can make use of auto wired annotation and inject your dependencies inside your beans, right? Now I'm using various annotations over here like component, auto wired, right? So if you have any doubt in any of the annotation, right, I have made a separate video on that. So I'll just add a link in description. You can go ahead and check that if you have any doubt in annotations, right? So that marks the end of why and how the dependency injection comes into picture, right? Now let's check out what exactly is dependency injection. So as we have seen, injecting dependencies at runtime, whenever your application is coming up, the dependencies will be injected, right? Let's try and bring up this application and let's see if these statements are being printed on the console, right? So here, as you can see here, first we are initializing online order because that is the dependency for our user, right? And after that we are initializing user. So these two beans are being initialized over here, online order and user, right? So that's how the dependency of your classes will be added. Now we can also debug this application and check. So let me just add a debug point over here. So let me just start the application in debug mode. Here if you can see, so my debug point is at this statement, and at that point your order is filled with online order, right? So this instance of order is filled with online order class, right? So basically your Spring is adding this dependency into user class, right, on runtime whenever your application is bringing up, right? So that is basically dependency injection, right? Now let's jump to the types of dependency injection. So dependency injection has three types. First one is field injection, second one is setter injection, and third one is constructor injection. So constructor injection is very important and it's mostly used inside the IT industry. Basically it has more advantages than these two. So that also we will discuss in this video. So let's first go through field injection, which is the first type of your dependency injection, right? So in field injection, dependency is set on the field of a class, right? So this example that we have seen is an example of your dependency injection because this is a field of your user class. The order is a field of your user class and we are injecting it by using auto wired, right? So this is something which we called as field injection basically, right? So what will happen at runtime if we run this application? Let's see. So here we are first initializing order, right? So what will happen here, as we have seen in bean lifecycle, once the IOC container is initialized, it will start constructing the beans, right? So it will check what all classes have component annotation, right? So it will come here to order and it will check, okay, component is a bean that we have to create. So what it will do, it will create some object of this order, let's say order, by using this constructor, right? So it will create this object. While creating object, it will call constructor, and that is when this output will be printed on the console, right? So Spring has initialized this order and have that object ready inside your Spring IOC container, right? Now next it will encounter your user object. Now it will try to create a bean of this user object, but it will see, okay, here we are auto wiring order. So user has a dependency on order as well. So what will happen? We already have this order inside your IOC container, this order created. So what Spring will do? Spring will inject that order over here, add that dependency over here, right? After that, it will create the object of your user by using this constructor, right? And that is when this statement will be printed on the console, right? So that is how this order dependency is being injected inside your user class, right? So that is how we can make use of field injection. So it is very simple, just add auto wired annotation. So any number of dependencies you can add over here that will be injected by your Spring dependency injection, right? So basically Spring uses a reflection, it iterates over the field of your class and then inject the dependencies, right? So that is how it works, right? So any number of fields you have, all those dependencies will be added, provided that all those fields are your Spring components and all the fields have @auto wired annotation on top of them, right? So advantages of your field injection, it's very simple and easy to use, right? You can just add @auto wire and the job is done, right? So let's see what are disadvantages of your field injection, right? So field injection cannot be used with immutable fields. What are immutable fields? Let's say you mark something as final. Try to do it here. What we will do here, we'll say public final order. So the moment I do that, as you can see, we are getting some error. because this final variable is not initialized, right? So because we need to initialize this final variable when we declare it basically, right? Or rather we need to initialize it inside your constructor, right? So what is final variable basically? So once you assign the value of your final variable, you cannot change it later, right? Let's say you have integer final variable and you have assigned the value of that variable to, let's say, 5 over here, right? So once you initialize it, you cannot change the value. If you try to change the value, it won't permit you to change the value, right? So that is the use of basically final variable. So basically final variable should be immutable variables, right? So that is the problem over here. Okay, so that is the first problem that we encounter while using field injection, right? Second problem is chances of null pointer exception over here. So let's say here we don't have this final, let's say we have this variable only, right? And let's say we have one method, just simple method we are going to add over here, and what we will do, we will say order dot process order, and the same method we will add inside our order class as well, right? And we will just print something, let's say that we are processing your order, right? So now let's say there is some other code. Okay, let's say there is a main method over here. Now here what are we doing? We are creating the instance of your user object, right? And we are calling user.process, right? Now if I run this code, let's see what happens. So we are getting null pointer exception over here because we are creating the instance of user, but this dependency is not actually injected because this code is not running from Spring, right? This is not a Spring component. We ran it explicitly, right? So in this case, we don't know what is order, because when we run it by using Spring Boot, it will inject the dependencies, but here we are not injecting the dependencies, right? We are just creating the user object. This is the valid code, right? But when I call user.process, as the process function is calling order, this is giving us null pointer exception because order is empty, right? Order is null basically. So that is a second problem with your field injection. So if someone writes a code like this inside your Spring code, then that is likely to break and throwing null pointer exception, right? So that is again a separate problem with your field injection, right? So basically these are two disadvantages of your field injection. Now let's proceed and see setter injection next. So basically in setter injection, we inject the dependency by using setter of that particular field, right? Now let's see how. So here, let's say we have order, right? So let's add a setter over here. So I'll add a setter for order, right? And this setter, on top of this setter, what we are going to do, we are going to add auto wired, and that's it. This is a setter injection and we will remove it from here, right? And we have to annotate this method using auto wire. So that is something that we did already, right? So this is how you can use setter injection basically. Now let's run this code and let's see what happens. So as you can see in the output, the order and user are initialized, right? So that is how setter injection we can use. So instead of injecting your dependencies at the field level, Spring will now inject it by using setters, right? So it will actually go ahead and check that there is a setter method and there is a dependency injection annotation annotated, that is auto wired, right? And what needs to be injected over here, the parameter which we are going to pass over here, which is order in this case. So order object is already created here, right? So as we discussed while field injection, this order will be created, right? So there will be an order object which will be present inside your IOC container. So same object will be injected over here by using setter, and this dot order, that means this order will be populated with that particular order which is coming from here, which will be present inside your IOC container, right? So that is how it works basically, and that we can see inside our output as well, that your order is initialized and our user is initialized as well, as both are Spring components, right? Now that is setter annotation, and let's discuss the advantages of setter injection now. Now dependencies can be changed at any point of time after object creation. So let's say here, once the object is created, what we can do is we can call the setter method and we can inject other object as well, right? So here, for example, what we can do here, let's say we have online order here, right? So I'm just using this class to demonstrate. So let's say we have a main method. What we can do here is main method, or let's say you have any other function, right? So what we can do, we can create object of user, right? Let's say this is another user, we can create object of order as well. So this is a custom order, not that order which is being injected inside your user, right? It is not this order which is present inside your IOC container, right? This order is different. Now this order, what you can do, you can say user dot set order and just inject this order inside this user. We are setting it explicitly, right? We can change the dependency at any point of time like that, right? And this is easy for JUnit testing as well. We can pass mock objects independently, so we can use setter methods, and you can pass the mock objects and set the mock objects explicitly, right? So that is also useful while you are doing JUnit testing, right? So that is another advantage of your setter injection. After that, let's discuss disadvantages. Fields cannot be marked as final, as we have seen inside field injection as well. So cannot use immutable fields, right? So same problem we will encounter in field injection as well, that field cannot be marked as final, right? So let's see here. So if I go inside here and let's say we mark it final, right, then it is giving us same error that we had in field injection, that it's not able to initialize it. So you cannot use setter injection when it comes to your immutable variables. You cannot declare the final, same as field injection, right? So here also it is giving us the error that this order is final and you cannot inject it, right? So that is one problem similar to field injection. And another disadvantages is that this is difficult to read and maintain, right? So basically if we have auto wire here only, we will know that this is being injected by spring, right? But let's say we have it on setter, then we will need to find it, okay, where is the setter method, and we'll need to check if it is auto wired or so. The readability is the problem here, right? So it's difficult to find, so it's not according to the standards, right? So that is another problem with your setter injection. So these two are disadvantages of your setter injection, right? Now let's see constructor injection next. So constructor injection is very important and it's mostly used inside IT industry. Most of the people use constructor injection, right? Because it brings a lot of advantages, right? And it overcomes the disadvantages of your field injection and your setter injection, right? So both the problems that we have seen with setter and field injection will be overcome by using constructor injection, right? So very, very important, right? As the name suggests, dependency will be resolved at the time of initialization of your object. Now constructor injection is while creation of your bean only, the dependencies will be injected. Now let's see how, right? Now let me remove this setter, right? What I'll do here, we have this, right? What I'll do, I'll add order over here, add this order. What I will do here, I will do this dot order equal to order. Let me remove this code as well. And now what I will do, I will add auto wired on top of this. So once I add auto wired on top of this dependency will be injected by using constructor, right? This is something which we called as constructor injection, right? Now let's say there are multiple fields as well. So multiple fields also you can add inside your constructor, right? All those fields will be initialized accordingly, right? And these beans will be injected. So what will happen over here is when the application will be started, your order will be created, right? So the order object will be created and it will be inside your IOC container, right? So when the user will be initialized, it will check, okay, that we need to do constructor initialization over here. So when it will try to initialize your user object, what it will do is it will try to find for this order. It will check if this order is present inside our IOC container already. So it will go ahead and see IOC container, okay, order we have already initialized. What it will do, it will inject that same order here, and that same order will be assigned to this order that we have over here, right? So that's how the dependency will be injected. Now if we rerun this code, it should print the similar kind of results. So initializing order and initializing user, right? So that is how the dependency is being injected basically, and that is the constructor injection for us. As we have discussed, it is recommended, right? And the advantages of that we will see. Now one more point to highlight here is when there is only one constructor present, then auto wired is not mandatory, right? So let's say there is only one constructor, even if I remove that and let's say rerun this code, then this dependency will still be injected, because Spring will use reflection, right? And it will analyze that, okay, this order is also a component, Spring component, we already have that component, right? We already have that bean present. What it will do, it will inject the same bean directly, okay? But let's say there is some other class as well, right? For example, let's say we have online order, right? And now we have other constructor as well. Let's say we have two constructors, online order, right? So this dot online order I will do, right? Now we have two constructor, right? Now in this case the auto wired is mandatory because it will get confused that which bean needs to be initialized. Well, let's try to run this and let's see what happens. See, so we are getting errors basically, bean instantiation exception fail to instantiate bean, because it don't know which beans to be instantiated basically. So we can explicitly say that, okay, I want to inject this one. So now if we run this code, it should work fine, right? As you can see, it is working fine now, right? Now you may ask that, okay, initializing order is still printed on the console here. That is printed because this order is still a Spring component, right? So it will still create a bean. You're using it or not using it, it will still create a bean and will initialize this object and keep it in IOC container, right? That's why this statement is basically printing. So what we can do, let's go ahead and print this as well. So in online order, so that again should be printed on the console. Let's see. So there we go. So that is also printed. In order to check that, let's debug. Let me add a debug point over here and let's see what happens now. Let me run the application in debug mode now. So here, as you can see, online order is injected, but order is still null over here, right? This is null because we are not injecting it. We haven't added any auto add or so over here, right? So that is the problem. So that is the reason this order is not being injected and our guy online order is being injected, right? Now let's try something. Now let's add auto add here as well. Now we have two auto add. Now let's say it is giving error. Only one constructor can have auto add annotation, right? So you cannot have auto add on more than one constructor. Now let's say if you want to initialize both of them at one go, what we can do is we can remove this. We can have one more online order over here, and what we can do, this dot online order equal to online order, right? Now when we run this code, it will inject both the dependencies, right? There we go. Now let's add a debug point again and let's debug and check. Let me run it in debug mode. And as you can see here, now order and online order, both the orders are injected properly, right? So that is how the constructor injection basically works, right? If you only have one constructor, then auto add is not mandatory. If you have more than one constructor, then you should have auto add on at least one constructor, right? Otherwise you will get the compile time failures, right? Now let's discuss the advantages. Now here all mandatory dependencies will be injected at the time of initialization itself. So as I mentioned, when your application is coming up and your bean is being formed, at that time only the dependencies will be injected, right? So these two dependencies will be injected while this bean is being formed, right? It makes 100% sure that your object will be initialized with all your proper dependencies, right? Otherwise it won't be initialized, right? This avoids any null pointer exceptions that we faced in field injection, because no such cases will be there. Your object will never be null, right? So as we need to pass these two, there will not be any scenario where order and online order is null. Next is we can create immutable objects using constructor injection. Very, very important, right? As we have seen here, the disadvantages, field cannot be marked as final, inside setter injection, and inside field as well, we have the same disadvantage, cannot be used with immutable fields, right? But let's see here. Now here what I will do, I will make this guy final. Are we getting any error? No, we are not, because it will work, because this order we are initializing inside your constructor, right? And while your bean will be injected, and while this bean is created, this order which is coming from your IOC container will be assigned to this order. That means this final will be assigned. So immutable fields also you can inject by using constructor injection, right? So that is the advantage of your constructor injection, right? That's why this constructor injection is very useful and many people are using, right? That's why it is more important, right? And that is the reason why it is recommended as well, right? Now fail fast. Now let's say any of the dependencies are missing, then it will fail at compile time only. It will say that there is no dependency, then it will fail at that time only, right? So fail fast behavior of your constructors, right? So that is another advantage of your constructor injection. For example, let's say this online order is not a component. Let's say, let me remove this component annotation from here, and if I run this application now, let's see what happens. See, it fails. Online order could not be found because there is no such bean. We have removed components, so there is no point of finding the bean, right? So this is the fail fast behavior, and it will give you the exact error why it is failing, right? That is fail fast behavior for us. That will be helpful for us to understand that which beans are missing or which dependencies are missing, basically, right? Let me revert that changes. Right now, if we run this code, it should come up fine, right? So let's see. So it is coming up fine, right? So everything is fine over here. So all those are advantages of your constructor injection, right? So that marks the end of our constructor injection as well. Now let's discuss the problem faced during dependency injection, right? So first problem is your circular dependencies, right? So what is circular dependencies? Let's try to visualize it over here. Now let's say you have order, right? So let's say this is order class, and let's say you have user class, right? Now till now what we are doing, we are adding order inside your user, right? So we are auto wiring your order inside your user. So what we are going to do now is we are going to inject this user as well inside your order. So this is a circular dependency. Your order is dependent on user and user is dependent on order, right? So that marks the circular dependency, right? So let's see how. So let me create such scenario now. Let me just remove this final, and let me remove this as well. We don't need it anymore. I will remove that, remove this as well. What I will do, I will go to use order, and what I will do, I will create the object of user over here, and there we go. And what I will do, I'll initialize it by using constructor injection, right? And I will say this dot user equals to user, and what I will do, I'll auto wire this, right? So this is constructor injection basically. Now let's run this code and let's see what happens. See, it is giving error, and it is saying the dependencies of some beans in your application form a cycle. So it is exactly giving us the error saying that there is a cyclic dependency in your project. Go and fix it, right? And also it is giving us the classes that order has dependency on user, a user has dependency on order, right? Now this cyclic dependency, how we can resolve? So one way to resolve the cyclic dependency is by using lazy annotation, right? So if you have seen the last video here, so when the beans will get created, right? So eager initialization is the one, and other is lazy initialization, right? This last video that I have asked you to go through, right? Which is kind of a dependency for this video, right? So lazy initialization is basically injecting beans whenever they are needed, right? So how we achieve this? By using lazy annotation, right? So what we can do here is, let's say order have a dependency on user and user have dependency on order, right? So what we can do here is, while creating object of user, what you can do here, at constructor level you can add lazy, as we are doing the constructor injection over here. So at that point you can add lazy, right? Now if you run this code, all your beans are getting created fine, right? So this is how you can use lazy annotation to avoid cyclic dependency, and you can add it on a bean level as well, or you can add it on constructor level as well, or you can add it on field level as well. If you are doing field injection, you can add it on setter level as well if you are doing setter injection, right? So that is how you can resolve by using lazy annotation, right? These cyclic dependencies. So there is one more way to resolve these cyclic dependencies, that is by using your post construct. What we will do here, we will use field injection over here, let's say. And in order, what we will do, we'll remove this annotation, right? We won't use any auto wired over here, and we need to remove this as well, because it will consider this as the constructor injection, right? If you remember, we don't need to give auto wired in case of constructor injection, but this is a default constructor, so should be fine. So here user, we will remove everything, and what we will do, we will add one method, let's say public void init, let's say. And here what we will do inside this, we will say here order, set order, right? Set order we need to do, and what we need to set this object, the object of your order, right? So this set order method we need to create inside your order. Here what we need to do, this dot user we need to assign to this user, right? So this is how you can inject by using post construct. One more thing we missed here, we need to annotate this with not lazy, with post construct, right? So after constructing this user bean, set this user bean inside your order, right? So it will just call this, it will just set this user here, right? So you don't need to use auto wiring over here, rather you can use this setter and you can inject by using post construct. So this is how you can manage the cyclic dependency by using post construct as well, right? So as you can see, everything is initialized properly, right? So that is a circular dependency for us, so that we have addressed, right? Now let's see unsatisfied dependency. Now we have seen one unsatisfied dependency already, right? When we had let's say object of online order as well, right? We had online order, and here I will do comma and add online order, and here I will and let's say this dot online order equals to online order, and I will annotate this with, let's say, auto wired. I will remove the auto wired from here. I will remove this post construct. Now let's say this online order is not a component. It is not a component itself, so if you try to inject it, obviously you are going to get some error that there is a dependency missing, right? So what happened? Okay, let me remove this as well. Let me rerun this. So now if you can see, this is giving that your dependency is missing, right? This online order is missing basically, right? So what I will do, I'll just bring this back, and what we can do here, let me refactor this code a bit, right? What I will do, I'll remove this order. I will convert this order to an interface again, right? What we will do, let's convert it to interface, right? Let me remove this as well. We don't need anything, we just need an empty interface. And this online order, let's implement by using that particular order. Let's create another order. Let's say it's offline order class, right? And this will also implement order, right? So there are two classes implementing order now. Here also we'll, let's say, just add one constructor. We'll just add a constructor over here, and let's just print one statement. Let's say this particular is offline order. And now what we will do, online order, offline order, this is a concrete thing, so we shouldn't use it. So let's use order only, right? So now I'm just injecting order, right? But which order will be injected over here? Well, let's see. Now if I run this code, now see, this is working fine because we haven't converted this offline order to a Spring component. So what I will do, convert it to Spring component as well, so that we have two beans of your order type, right? Now let's run this code and let's see what happens. Now as you can see, it is saying that user required a single bean but two found, right? It wanted only order, but it found two type of order, online and offline, right? So this is basically unsatisfied dependency issue, that it's not able to find the correct dependency, right? Not able to find the right order to inject. So in that case, what we can do is we can mark one of the component as primary, that whenever this is used, I want to inject this one. Now if we run this code, let's see what happens. Now it is being injected fine, right? All the beans are being initialized, and here when the user is created, at the time of order, it is injecting your online order. In order to check that, let's debug this code, right? Now I'm running this code in debug mode, and as you can see, this order is basically online order over here, right? So that's how you can do it by using primary. Let's say you want to, inject the offline one as well, but what you need to do is you need to go ahead and mark that one as primary. But the second way to address this problem is, let's remove it. We can use something called as qualifier. So as you can see here also, it is throwing some error saying that could not auto wire. So the other approach we can do here is by using qualifier. So what we can do, I can add a qualifier that when we try to inject the order, which order we want to inject. Let's say I want to inject online order. I can just select that, right? So it is basically the name of your bean with camel case. So first letter will be small and the rest of the name will be same, right? Like that we can inject over here. And now if we run this code, that particular online order will be injected, right? And if we debug this code, then again you will see the online order being injected. Okay, here if you can see, online order is being injected. Now let's say we want to inject offline order. What we can do, we can just say offline order over here, and let's rerun this code, or let's debug this again. So as you can see, now the offline order is being injected, right? So that is the use of qualifier. So just to reiterate, if you have, let's say, one interface and it has multiple implementation, and you are injecting that interface, right, as our dependency inversion of solid principle suggests, we should use the abstraction. At that time, if there are multiple implementation and all of those are Spring beans, then your Spring will be confused which one to inject. At that time, your qualifier comes into picture, and it will say, okay, I want this particular bean to be injected like that. I want offline order, and like that offline order will be injected in this case, right? So that is the issue. That is the unsatisfied dependency issue, and that is how you can address it, right? By using, let's say, primary, or let's say by using qualifier as well, right? So that marks the end of it. So basically we have covered everything. So I hope that you have fair understanding of dependency injection inside Spring now, and you can answer all the interview questions. So thank you so much for watching the video. If you like the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to share this video with your friends so that they can also learn dependency injection, right? And that's it. See you in the next video.